All right. So I'm gonna start this thing. I need to post a link here in the chat. Um, so that link I'll post a few times, so that way you can kind of see what's going on here, or the exact piece of music that I'm using to practice on. So what I'm practicing from is a etude book. So this is a book I've had for a number of years now. It's 48 studies for oboe or saxophone. They're pretty interchangeable. And so that link, again, I'll post that a few times for you guys to see exactly what I'm looking at. So while I'm going over this, make sure you have that somewhere open, whatever PDF format you have on your computer. Make sure you're looking at that so you can see what I'm practicing. So once you get that opened up, it'll say Scherzo number 14 or something like that. And I guess the first thing I'll do, I'll just go ahead and play it one time so you can kind of hear what it's supposed to sound like. And then I will go through and break down how to practice it to get it to this point. And this could be applied to any single piece of music that I give to you guys in class. Any piece of music that you guys get, find online to read, anything you buy at Piccolo's Music, literally any type of piece of music that you're working on right now, you can use this or some of these methods to hopefully improve your practicing. So the biggest thing you want to remember when you're working on something will take a long time, and that's the kind of the key, is having patience to be able to get to where you want on something that's difficult. It can be really easy to try to fake your way through it, or pretend that make sure that note is I guess faking your way through it to make it sound all right, but really taking the extra time and dedication to get it to where it can be is kind of where we can really excel as musicians. So I'll go ahead and get the saxophone here. I haven't played this one a couple days, so give me 1 second. Might help if I take the cleaning cloth out of the bell to make it sound a little better. I'll post that link one more time so you can have that open. All right. All right, so I'll first play the example for you so you can hear what it's supposed to sound like, and then I will kind of go into the steps that you can do to break apart a piece of music and help practice it. So this is called Scherzo. So I had quite a few mistakes in there. It's been a minute since I practiced this one. So it's actually good that I can dive back into this. So on the Scherzo, so hopefully you have that link up. I will post it one more time so that way you can have this open. Let me know if you're having any difficulties clicking on that link so you can see what the piece of music is. All right, so first thing, once you take a look at it, there's lots and lots of 16th notes. There's just a lot of notes on the page. So the first thing you want to do is immediately slow the tempo down. If it's a fast, immediately either slow the tempo down, like you're tapping your foot, or you can make the notes longer. We've done this in class both ways. So I would go over to the computer, put on the metronome, and I'd immediately slow it down to have it a slower tempo. So that way we're not, trying to play it too fast too soon. Or I would say, hey class, ignore the rhythm and just play the notes and pretend they're all half notes or pretend they're all quarter notes. So that I'll break down that first one. So right now they're all 16th notes. I'm going to pretend they're all quarter notes, and I'm going to play the quarter note at about this speed right here. So I'm just going to do the first line. And getting that first line, practicing at quarter notes. Also ignore the slurs, accidentals, staccato notes at the first time through too. Just get the notes, and then we can add those in. So playing the first line in quarter notes, I might just do the first couple measures. So right here. I'll end right there. So doing that same exact method, playing quarter notes, then you start upping the tempo a little bit once you have all those notes at 100%. So we'll go right there. Now once we kind of got that speed comfortable, we'll go ahead and start adding the articulations. So all the staccatos, all the accents, all the slurs, we'll go ahead and add that in while still keeping it at a slow tempo. So that's slow tempo still. So I got that at that speed. Now what you can do, we've made them quarter notes. Now you can go to the next speed of notes, which in this case would be eighth notes. So we'll turn them into eighth notes. Bum, 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 ba-da-dum, bum, ba-da, bum, bum, while keeping those articulations in there. So now they're eighth notes. You go 1, 2, 1, and. That's one way to do it. And then just like we do in class, once we can play at that specific speed, go ahead and start increasing that tempo. I keep doing this for tempo. I'm not sure why. This is more like a volume knob. It's more like a click on the computer for the metronome. Anyway, so slow it down, slow the tempo down, take rhythm out of it. All you're going to be playing is the notes. And then once you get all the notes, speed it up a little bit, and then add the articulations in. At any point, if you start making a mistake, let's say here, I'm not going to play any of the sharps. And so if you start playing it faster and faster while making a mistake, you're building a bad habit. And habits are really, really tough to break if you keep doing them over and over again. That's what they call bad habits. So what is it to say? It's like a bad habit takes 1,000 times doing it correctly to completely erase. So think about that. How many times you do something that's not correct in class or just in life in general. Say you have always, I don't know, you've always vacuumed the carpet a specific way or something. Just a really rare example. So say you vacuum the carpet a very specific way and you've done it wrong for so long. It's gonna be hard to go back to that correct way. So that's what this is for. All right, so let's say I've ignored the key signature. I didn't do what Mr. Bass told me to do in class. I've ignored the key signature. And now I've practiced it fast with the wrong notes. So now I've practiced it fast with the wrong notes. So now it's going to take me longer to go back through and fix those mistakes because I've built that bad habit in. So make sure you don't ignore the wrong notes. And as soon as you hear something wrong, we're all to a point now where we can hear the mistake when they happen. So make sure that you know what's going on there. Okay, let's dive a little down, and I'll post that. I'm just going to keep posting that link so that way you guys have it. Okay, so diving through, a tricky part here that we can look at is, let's find it. Let's go the second line. The second line, we're going to do the first two measures up until that rest. So I guess the first two and a quarter measures. So it's the second line, the first 2 1/4 measures. It sounds like this. So that's the first line. There's a tricky G sharp to G natural in there to an F sharp. So it's a chromatic fingering going down, but it's a tricky fingering. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to isolate those specific notes. And we've done this in class as well. I would say, all right, trumpets, I want you to play that first note and the second note in measure 12. So you're just going to play your G and your F sharp, and we'll go back and forth between the two. So you can either go down the 4 notes, just playing that whole measure, kind of like we did before, playing it quarter notes all the way through, or half notes. Let's, in this case, let's break it even slower. So I'm going to practice this at a half note speed. So again, here is the link. Open that PDF up so you know where I'm talking about. This is the second line, the second measure. Second line, second measure. Take that tape out. Second line, second measure, practicing at a half note speed. And now what you can do here, if we're just isolating that specific measure, we know where the stopping note, we know where the starting note is and where the stopping note is. So when we have that, I'll get your question in 1 second. The beginning and ending of it. So starting on that note, we have a definite start note and we have a definite end note. So you can play this section forward and backwards. I think I've maybe done this a handful of times in class, but it's a really, really good practicing technique because you're still practicing going from one specific note to the next, no matter if it's forward or backwards. It actually makes your brain work a little bit harder. So I'll play that second line, second measure. Second line, second measure. I'll go at a quarter note speed this time because I had all the notes that time. I'll use the articulations as well. So here's quarter note. So we can start at the end of that measure now and go in reverse. And then go back. And if you get to the point, you can start kind of bouncing back and forth between the beginning and the end of that. So you're essentially practicing just that measure back and forth and back and forth. Try to see anywhere else we have here. The question was, what kind of saxophone is this? So this is an alto saxophone. This is a Selmer Series 2. The text is backwards right there, but it's a Selmer Series 2, and it just has a black black coating on it. So all instruments have some sort of coating. Usually they're a brass color, so that kind of goldish color. Some are silver. Those are the more common ones. And then some kind of more non-traditional coatings would be there's one that's called like a powder coat. They do white coating on instruments, and then black coating is another common one. The black coating is supposed to make it a little more dark or whole sounding. That's just what the factory says. I personally just like the look of it with the black and the gold. And this saxophone I actually got out of, there's a shop in Boulder, Colorado called Saxophone Alley. And this guy specializes in just finding saxophones. And in their store there, they have over 1,000 saxophones just hanging on the wall for anyone to go try. So I definitely need to make a trip down there sometime to go to see all these saxophones. I have a ton of them. But he found this, I sent a message to him saying, hey, I'm looking for this specific alto saxophone and this specific model. And he said, okay, I'm on it. And so he started sending emails, calling people left and right. And they ended up finding this saxophone. It was in someone's grandma's attic. It was just sitting there, hasn't been used for a little while. Her grandson played it in high school and college and then just kind of stopped playing or didn't want the instrument anymore. So it was just kind of sitting up in the attic. And this lady said, hey, I have one of those. And sold it to him, and then he sold it to me. So now I am the proud owner of a Selmer Series 2 saxophone. There's not very many of these models in this great of condition, so I did luck out quite a bit. Okay, continuing on. Sorry, that was a long tangent to explain where the saxophone came from. Okay, so another thing we could look at, again, I'll post that link so that way you guys have the PDF in there to see what's going on. I'm going to go to the very, very bottom line, the second measure in. So the very, very bottom line, second measure in. We have a low notes to high notes, and this happens pretty frequently in a lot of pieces. And it's a very, very difficult thing to practice, going from such a low note to such a high note. So I've talked in about every single class so far about what's called voicing. That's the shape of the inside of your throat. So if you're thinking O or thinking E to play a specific note, and a lot of times lower notes, we want to think O, higher notes, we want to think E. And so playing on these low notes, we have to practice going from O, E, O, E. When I'm practicing low to high notes, I think of the scene in The Wizard of Oz, where all the guards are outside the gate protecting the evil witch of the west. They're doing oh wee oh wee oh oh wee oh. That's just what I think in my head whenever I'm playing low notes to high notes. So this is that second measure. Again, speed, you want to slow it down. If it's fast, slow it down. You don't want to do anything too fast. So going that second measure, very, very bottom line, do quarter notes right now. Quarter notes, slow, slow. And in this case, I can see a pattern. The bottom notes are starting to move, and the top note is the exact same. So I know that that top note is the same every single time. So I know that I don't have to really focus on that top note because it's not going to be changing. It's going to be the same. It's going to be a C natural every single time, no matter what. So think just that bottom note's the one that's changing. Those are the ones that I need to focus on. So I'll do a little faster. A little quicker. In the same case here, we know where the starting note is and we know where the ending note is, so I can do it backwards. And then go forward. And the hard part here is going from such a low note to high note. You get to practice that voicing, oh wee, oh wee, oh. I'll show you what happens if you don't do the proper voicing. You get a kind of a really, really weird tone. So if I'm just thinking oh on everything, you get a very, very weird tone. So you want to think that oh wee, oh for the high and low notes. And then also for repeated passages, you want to minimize, or anytime you have a difficult passage that's fast, you want to minimize the distance that your fingers are away from the keys. If my fingers are very, very far away, I got this measure memorized, so I can show you a little bit easier. So I'll zoom it down here. So you can see my fingers. Let me get a better angle here. Maybe there. Wait, I know. So you can see my finger distance here. So I'm not going to be able to play it as easily if my fingers are far away from the keys. There's more room for error. There's more time it's going to travel. So I'll practice. I'll just show you one time what it's like having your fingers far away. It's hard to do. There's just a lot of extra movement that doesn't need to be there. So if your fingers are close to the keys. There's less room for air in your practicing. So again, one of the biggest things you want to do is just slow it down. Don't try doing it too fast too soon. If you try doing that, you're just going to start those bad habits. And remember, those bad habits, they take a lot of time to fix and get better. So start slow. Remember, you can turn the rhythm. So I guess just go over all things. Metronome, slow the time down. Slow the time down is going to be one of the biggest things you could do. Second, change the rhythm of the measures. So you're just focusing on notes. So just playing one note at a time, half note, quarter note, whatever speed you're comfortable with that you know you can get 100% of the notes. Once you start working on those notes, add the articulations. So the staccatos, the accents, the slurs, and as well with that, working on dynamics as well. You can add those in very, very easily. Third, you can change up the rhythm. So you're starting at the beginning of the measure, going to the end of the measure, and then working it backwards. And you can also just separate it up so that way you're changing the articulations in the measures. So let's go back to that second measure. The second measure, top line. Second measure, top line. We have slur 3, tongue 1, slur 3, tongue 1 in that measure. So it sounds like this. If I change the articulation, I'm still getting my practice in my fingers, but I'm also adding an extra little difficulty by forcing my tongue to work at a different speed. So I'll do slur 2, tongue 2. Now tongue 2, slur 2. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. We have the 5 different articulation patterns we've been working on in class. Those can be applied here as well. So changing the articulation pattern and then working on your voicing from a low note to high. That's the 5th thing, voicing. So low to high, O, E. Remember thinking the scene from The Wizard of Oz where the guards are outside the gate. That always helps me out. I guess I'll play this one more time and then I'll wrap it up. If you guys have any questions at all, you guys have my email address. You're wondering about what to practice, how to practice it. I'd be more than willing to help any of you with that. So again, this is the scherzo from the saxophone and oboe 48 etudes. There you go, a little bit easier. So some ideas on how to practice. Hopefully that helps you guys. Until next time, hope you guys stay safe and have a fantastic weekend.